Hello, in this clip from our Justia webinar, How AI Impacts Small and Solo Law Firms, exploring the potential benefits and risks of incorporating AI into practice, Thomas Schack explores the basics of AI while giving an overview of what AI can do for small and solo law firms. Remember, if you want to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Thanks, Nina. I am really pleased to be here today and to try to walk everybody through this really incredible. I'm going to share my screen briefly. See 1 second. So now we see the presentation. But David, I'm really looking forward to this. This is an incredible opportunity. The impact of AI, and we've been doing a lot of analysis on AI and AI systems for almost the past 10 years, and are both academically and professionally, and it's really been a remarkable experience to see how fast this is all evolving, and so I do think that there's a big difference between the type of AI use that small and solo firms will be utilizing on a going forward basis, and so that's why we came up with this presentation, to try to help folks understand, where the risks are, where the positives and the benefits are, and how to kind of discern your way through, from a conversational standpoint. At the end of this, you should be able to have at least some idea of how you can talk about what AI and how AI is going to impact your firm or your practice. It is particularly for small and solo firms. There are, a lot of large firms, a lot of big firms do use much more extensive AI systems, but for us, for our purposes in small and solo firms, we typically use them differently. So we'll talk about that today. All right. So without further ado, we'll begin. So first and foremost, we have to have an understanding of what specifically is artificial intelligence. And AI, as we refer to it, is the ability of machines to make, to mimic actually human cognitive functions, and to help with learning and problem solving. I know that's pretty vague, and we're going to get a little bit more detail on that, but you should have a basic understanding of what we're talking about. So AI is rapidly changing. Obviously, in the legal field, it's changing everything. But particularly as it relates to our field, to the field of law, it's automating tasks, improving research, and assisting with legal strategy in some circumstances. And again, we're going to talk about the risks of all this down, a little bit later in the presentation. But you always want to have in the back of your mind, kind of a one eye open as it relates to what type of systems you're going to use, and what type of information they're going to generate that you can use and that you can rely upon, even more importantly than simply using. All right, we're also going to talk about the tasks that law firms are using AI for. Typically now we see document review, contract analysis, due diligence, and legal research. These are these are remarkable advances for us, particularly as small and solo firms. And the reason is because you're now getting put on a par with the ability to be able to scour tens of thousands of documents. And we'll talk a little bit about both how you protect yourself in doing that, and also don't make some of the obvious mistakes, or how to avoid them. So my first practice tip today is to watch out for systems that will draft documents. The reason I say that is not because there are some really fantastic things out there. Justia is doing a lot of work in this particular area, and they're doing great work in the area. But there are a lot of systems out there that will operate, kind of like the Wild Wild West. You'll go on to a system, or you'll sign up for a system. It's a few bucks to or a free trial, and it will draft all of your documents for you. Well, be very, very careful about the drafting documents issue, because that is where lawyers have already gotten into a lot of trouble. And again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So we're going to talk about the different types of AI currently. And right now we have two types of systems, basically: rules-based AI and generative AI. The rules-based AI are systems that are closed data, right? What do I mean by that? Well, generative AI, like GPT, which most folks are probably familiar with at this point, that's just open and vast. It draws from all of the internet, all of the resources on the internet, good and bad, right? Correct and incorrect. And so these generative AI systems that are using open data from the internet are very, very risky from that standpoint, because again, they're not drawing from us simply as attorneys. They're drawing, or they're not drawing from the information that we need simply as attorneys, but from just this vast, source of data that it really is remarkable. On the other hand, you also have rules-based AI, and what that is basically a closed content set. So I use LexisNexis as an example of their new AI product. And I don't do that as a reference. I simply want to be able to convey to most people who may be already using a closed or limited content rules-based AI system. So LexisNexis has that now, and so what happens is rather than scouring the entire global interweb, instead what we wind up with is just the facts, right? Just the information that are contained within LexisNexis databases, and it is again remarkably powerful, and something to just keep in mind when you're looking at different systems. You want to make sure that if you're going to be relying upon it, and there's nothing that you can rely upon 100%, of course. Even rules-based AI makes mistakes. It makes a lot of mistakes, at least so far. Generative AI is like a TNT box with a fuse for lawyers, and so you really have to be careful and make sure that you ask that question to yourself and to the systems that you may be testing out or being sold on. And that's another thing too, is that you got to be very, very careful with the sales pitches of these systems. You got to remember that marketing people in most of these environments are not lawyers. They don't have to live by our rules. They don't have to live by a requirement of the bar. So be very, very careful when, if you're asking questions, and this happened when we were testing one system not too long ago, a very big system. And we were, we wanted to upload, tens of thousands of documents to their system and then scour their system, scour our documents for certain information. It was just a test. And we uploaded 50,000 different decisions from here in Massachusetts. Almost all the decisions that exist in Massachusetts law, and then we ask questions against it. And for the most part, it was very good, except that and again, as we get to the security side of this, except that security is just always a concern now, particularly if you're uploading your own content. So the real difficult part of AI is that it can struggle with human conditions, right? Like complex reasoning and empathy. I mean, still human AI systems they're not human, and they're not yet capable of true empathy. And there's also, of course, the nuances that we use as lawyers, and some of these systems are just not, quite there yet, but, hopefully they will be. All right. The horizon, I'm going to go through this, fairly quickly, but the horizon of AI types. So we've talked about the closed system and the open system. Now we're going to talk about what's on the horizon, because it's evolving so quickly, and we want to make sure that you understand what's coming. at least, from an overview standpoint. 1 second. So, first of all, reinforcement. Let me go back. Reinforcement learning. This approach involves training AI agents through trial and error in a simulated environment. So that's where your AI agents are training themselves by trial and error. Making mistakes, catching their mistakes. And evolving. It's a very interesting concept, but we're not quite there yet with reinforcement learning. There's also a neuromorphic AI that's inspired by our own brains. And this particular field aims to or seeks to eventually process information, or have AI systems process information the same way our human brain does. Of course, that is an enormously complex and complicated effort, and it's going to take some time to accomplish that. But again, all of these things, if we were talking 10 years ago, we'd be saying these are truly on the deep horizon. They're not on the deep horizon anymore. They're soon going to be implemented in under certain circumstances, and so you want to be at least aware of them. All right, explainable AI, or XAI, focuses on developing AI that can explain its reasoning, tell you how it got to a particular conclusion. And without that ability, you really don't have the clear ability to be able to both build trust and ensure fairness. So this area is going to be particularly interesting as it relates to criminal law, at least from my perspective. All right, hybrid AI systems are combining different approaches, and so you might have a system where you're using a closed a rule-based source, and then have it selectively pick from the generative AI or the vast data. But again, that's not it's not perfected yet, and with all of these particular forms of AI, you want to be very careful when you hear these terms, because again, they're not perfected yet. And then you have AGI, or artificial general intelligence. This is where we try to get to the human level of intelligence and cognitive abilities. It's still way, way off, but you have to know that this is on the horizon. It's coming our way for lawyers and everybody else, attorneys and the rest of the world. And this is probably the area that's most kind of sticky from a theoretical standpoint and from a philosophical standpoint. So again, you want to keep your eye out for these types of advances, which again could be months away or could be decades away. It just depends on how ambitious and how the development goes in each of the areas. All right. So what can the different types of AI, the two that we talked about today, do for small and solo firms? Well, first, and this is huge, right? Legal research. AI can be used to automate the processes of legal research by scanning through large volumes of case law and other legal documents to identify relevant authorities. Now, I use that example of us uploading, our firm uploading 50,000 cases, or all the judgments that have ever come out in Massachusetts, to a system. Well, we did that as a test, and we did it because we wanted to see exactly what we should be concerned about as it relates to privacy. So you can imagine if instead of the public documents that we uploaded, which we were able to parse into search very, very easily and comprehensively, and the data we got back was very good. But here's the issue: if we were dealing with case materials, if we were uploading all of the documents in a particular case that we're working on, we have security concerns, right? And you should have security concerns, because the large volumes of documents that are going to be up in the cloud that are accessible by both the AI system and others at the companies where you're dealing with folks, right? So if the vendor is providing a legal research AI tool, And it has the ability to summarize, for instance, your documents, or be able to compare contracts, be able to do a lot of different, it automates obviously a lot of different processes. But then you're in a position to be able, then you're in a position to be able to you have to be cautious of your data. So when your data goes up to the system, you can't have, and I mentioned this in a webinar that I did with you all with Justia last year, and that is that you can't have folks in the background engaging in analysis on your information. So I'll give you a parade of horribles example. We've represented a number of political folks over the years. And so if we were to upload all of that information, for a particular client that we've had for decades, and it has all of the, kind of the PII, the personal information, it has obviously attorney-client privilege matters in it. It has, it's just like opening your file cabinet, your old paper file cabinet, or taking your file folders from your desktop on your Mac or IBM, and then again just putting it up into a cloud where it can be accessed by others. So I don't say that because these companies are going to be nefarious. I say it because it's a risk, and the true risk revolves around when that data gets up there. And this is the example that I try to use. If there's, if there happens to be somebody who's been hired by the vendor, who, maybe they went to Fiverr or one of those companies, and they're getting somebody to engage in certain quality control. But that person is sitting in, let's call it a kid. Some kid is sitting in their parents' basement somewhere out in the world, and all of a sudden, if they have access to that information, and let's say you have a high profile or a true political, issue and or client, and that information happens to get released or dispersed, it all falls on you. It's just that simple. So you really have to be asking these questions. And by the way, you can't just be asking it. You have to be testing it too. And the reason is because we have found that a lot of the vendors, particularly the larger vendors, will promise you anything that they can move mountains and earth, and you have to be careful and cautious about those particular promises. All right, document review. We'll talk a little bit about that. Contracts, pleadings. And looking for errors and omissions, obviously very, very important. And then you have also e-discovery, right? AI can be used to collect electronically stored information, and obviously if that's relevant to a legal case, it's enormously helpful because you don't have the human factor of having to go through the 4 million pages of documents. Now you have a system that can do it, that can go through the entire set of documents in a matter of, minutes or hours, as opposed to weeks, months, or even years in some cases, as I'm sure some of you have some of us have been involved with. And then there's also predictive analytics. This is where you also have to be kind of, careful. AI can be used to predict the outcomes in some cases, which can help you develop a more clear strategy, particularly if you're a litigator. And but it's also, again, the predictive analytics are not quite there yet, and so be very, very cautious about any of these systems that promise that they can, you upload a modest amount of 1-page, 2-page description of your case, and they come back and tell you, their AI system, depending upon where it's drawing from, will come back and say, oh, this is the path you should be taking, or this is the strategy you should be taking. Again, very risky, but it's out there.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.